good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live Money Usabata Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Coming up this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Government grants 23% pay increase for workers after a marathon meeting with organized labor ahead of the 2024 budget presentation tomorrow in Parliament. We have a statement from the Finance Ministry detailing some pointers for the budget tomorrow. Stay with us here on Hot Edition. We'll get into that. Also this evening, government molds a national policy on religious activities. We'll tell you exactly what the Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamobati, has been talking about, plus some reactions shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. The latest in business, sports, and entertainment coming up over the next 60 minutes as we gauge expectations ahead of the 2024 budget presentation, a crucial budget for that matter in this country, especially taking into consideration this election year 2024 and matters arising. Also, we'll get into details of Ghana's energy sector facing dire financial challenges than before, according to the Africa Center for Energy Policy, here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook and X at 3FM 927. You can log on now, get to see all the videos and the documents going to be posting there. I am Alfred Ocansey. Remember, Hot Edition is proudly brought to you by Old Mutual. Old Mutual do great things every day. Now, government has granted 23% salary increment to organized labor for the year 2024. The salary increment will cover between January and June, while another increment of 25% will also be implemented for organized labor between July to December. The National Tripartite Committee granted 22% for the daily minimum wage. It has now increased from 14 cedis, 88 pesos for 2023 to 18 cedis for 2024. So that's in terms of the real value, monetary value for this 23% increase, what I just mentioned earlier. It's now increased from 14 cedis, 88 pesos to 18 cedis for the 2024 fiscal year. And let's take a listen to exactly what happened earlier today and what led to this agreement between labor and government.
Government and organized labor first within the public sector. But since we are meeting you, we also want to use this same platform to communicate with you the outcome of a tripartite meeting, which we also concluded on Monday. Tripartite between organized labor, Ghana Employers Association, and government. Usually, in the course of every year, the tripartite constituents do meet to determine the national daily minimum wage of the ensuing year. At the end of our negotiations at the tripartite level, we agreed that the minimum wage be reviewed upwards by 22%, i.e. from 14.88 cedis to 18.15 cedis. Subsequently, the Public Sector Joint Negotiation Committee between all unions within the public space under the single spine and government also entered into negotiations to determine the national base pay. I'm happy to report to you that in some few minutes past, after a very difficult meeting, taking the current state of the economy into consideration and also taking into consideration the agreements that as a nation we have with the IMF and in making sure that we stay on course in achieving all the targets that we've set to achieve for ourselves and also to get all the benchmarks right. We have concluded that the national base pay be increased by 23% between 1st January 2024 to 31st June 30th June 2024, and subsequently an additional 2% increment will be added to the 23%, making it 25%. So from July to December 2024. So in terms of absolute figures, so the end of this year, the national base pay will be 14.74. But from January through to 30th June, it will.
Well, so that's Ignatius Bafwewa there, Minister of Employment Labor Relations, giving details of this agreement with Labor. So now you do know that government has granted 23 percentage point increase in the salaries for organized labor for the year 2024. Now, the salary, from what you heard from the minister, will cover between January to June, while another increment to up to about 25% for the July to December period of 2024. In absolute monetary terms, it means that the current 14 cedis 88 pesos for 2023 base pay will be increased to 18 cedis for 2024. My colleague and our chief labor correspondent, Daniel Opoko, sat through this meeting between labor and government, and he's joining me on the telephone. To have you as always, Daniel Opoko. Now, what was the response or the reaction of labor to this announcement by the Employment and Labor Relations Minister?
Right, so perfect. It will be very easy for you to conclude. Labor actually was not too happy with the announcement which was made, because when you compare the current increment against what was done last year, you realize that there's a sharp difference. Last year, where Labor was able to get 30%, but this time around, the negotiation was extremely difficult, with particular emphasis with the coming of the IMF. So the IMF conditionality somehow affected this year's negotiations. So the reason government decided to more or less divide the increment into two, whereas the first part is be implemented from January to June or July, then from July to December, then the other one, just 2%, be added to the 23 to the 25% for the increment. Labor actually is not happy. Because when we listen to what Dr. Yaba said, who is a spokesperson of organized labor, he was just not happy with the increment because this was one of the most difficult negotiations for them to do. And also when we listen to what Isaac Bampo Adu also said, he was proposing that going forward, there should be a series of discussions for them to move from the current daily minimum wage up to what we have the living wage. That's the discussion from organizations. The subsequent discussions, so hopefully by 2024, when they should enter and begin the next round of the negotiations, all these issues should be able to resolve. But by and large, and basically, Labor is not happy with this increment.
See, now, in expressing their unhappiness about this increment, did they give you an indication of what next they're going to do, or they're just going to accept it as has been announced?
Right. So when we listen to what Dr. Yaban said clearly, they said there's going to be a consistent engagement with government. They are not going to sit, or Labor is not going to sit and wait till when there should be negotiations. That's when government will come in and engage them. Now, from today, they are going to engage government consistently and resolve problems on the single spine pay policy. Currently, when you look at the policy, there are people at the base who are still earning around 300 Ghana cedis, or others also are earning around 400 to 500 Ghana cedis. And when we look at the current economic conditions, just pulls down with the current inflation, the macroeconomic indicators, you realize clearly that the purchasing power parity of workers have been settled out. So Dr. Yaban's firm commitment that in our subsequent discussions with government, there should be series of engagement before they will sit and negotiate for any either daily minimum wage or discussions or negotiations on the base pay. So they are going to have a lot of this. But let's not forget that government and organized labor have what we call the Social Partnership Council. So sometimes some of these discussions take place at the Social Partnership Council before it is elevated to the level of organized labor and government at the Public Sector Joint Negotiation Committee for them to meet and discuss some of these details. So going forward, they are going to engage from that level before they will elevate it to the Public Sector Joint Negotiation Committee. So they will not be having this simmering tension and similar agitation. But these particular increments, I will not be surprised. There should be agitation from other labor groupings who believe that the increment is woefully inadequate as compared to what they got last year. So basically, these are the issues, and labor actually does not have. But going forward, when they engage consistently with them, they should be able to bring a makeable solution to some of these things.
Good stuff there, Daniel. If you could just hold on a bit for me, and I know you spoke to Joshua Ansah as well, who's the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC, and this is what he said when you spoke to him earlier.
Well, I think that the meeting started on a good note, but unfortunately we couldn't finish. It has been adjourned, and we are meeting again tomorrow.
Were there some instances where there were anger or something of that sort?
Oh, there's nothing of that. There's nothing of that sort. There's nothing of that sort.
I know you did speak to Daniel. You did speak to Dr. Isaac Bampoado as well of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association, CLOGSAG. Now, what exactly did they have to say about this as well?
Right. So usually when they complete the negotiations, you have the government side led by the Minister of Employment and Labor Relations who make a statement and do an official announcement of the various figures. Then right after that, you move to the leadership of the various labor unions. So from organized level, the spokesperson, let's not forget that there are 3 labor centers in Ghana that speak to you, Alfred. You have the one led by the Trade Union Congress, that's Dr. Yaba. Then you also have the one led by Isaac Bampoado, that's the Forum. Then you have the one led by Mr. Abraham Kunsi, that's the Ghana Federation of Labor. And the Ghana Federation of Labor usually takes part in negotiating and discussing the daily minimum wage. But when it comes to the bipartite, which is organized labor and government to discuss increments on the single spine salary structure, then you have these 2 labor groups. You have the TUC, then you also have leadership of the forum. Dr. Yabang from the TUC is saying that they are not happy and they want the government to consistently engage them to resolve problems on the single spine salary structure. But with Isaac Bampoado, you was looking at the need to move from minimum wage to getting a living wage. If you can recall, consistently the International Labour Organization has been having some of these discussions. The need for nations to move from the daily minimum wage to a living wage. A living wage is when you have a dollar that will be able to amount that can cater for 4 people in a family or 4 people in a household. When you are unable to cater for 4 people in a household, then clearly you are not getting to where living wages. But that's what as the Bampoado is looking at, and a subsequent engagement, government should be able to earmark a lot of funds to be able to cater for the need to move from a daily minimum wage to a living wage. Currently, the daily minimum wage has been increased from 14.88 cities to 18 cities and 18 cities and 15 to 18 cities 0.15. You realize that you don't see any sharp increase, just about 22% increment. And that one is a big problem for labor. And they believe that going forward, they should have a living wage where they will have a quantum jump to the percentage increase for those who work in the informal sector.
See, and I want to hear from Dr. Isaac Bampoado as well when you spoke to him earlier.
We are still negotiating and we hope to conclude tomorrow. So have a little patience. Tomorrow.
Well, the last meeting you were giving 30%. Is this something that you are going higher?
Well, wait till tomorrow and then we'll give you what we have for our people.
We should wait till tomorrow before you tell us what you have for your people.
Exactly.
So obviously you are going for about 32 or 35%.
It's going to be something very good.
When you say something very good, what does that mean?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. So our people should be relaxed. We are negotiating for them. Everything will be okay. Thank you very much.
My final question to you, Doc.
Yeah.
Looking at your judgment on the minimum wage, does that serve as a base for the base pay negotiation? Because we are hearing about 45%. Is this something that you are going higher or within the 45%?
Of course, yes. The minimum wage is a guide to the base pay. So it's going to the minimum wage is going to determine the base pay.
So obviously then labor is starting on 45%.
I don't know what the minimum wage is.
So clearly, Daniel, you made reference to the evidence of what the minimum wage is and also the exact areas of the possible percentage expectation. And you talk about 45%. Now they're getting 23%. And that's a clear shortfall for them, at least based on their own expectations of it.
Absolutely. Because when we look at the minimum wage, usually when they meet to discuss the minimum wage, they set what you call a technical committee. So the technical committee will go and look at the various conditions in the economy, look at inflationary trends, look at macroeconomic stability, look at the purchasing power parity of workers, look at utility tariffs, also look at rent and looking at accommodation. Some of these factors are what the technical committee consider. Now, when the technical committee considered all these factors, they put the figure at 45% increment. Now, when the committee submitted a report to the larger plenary, where you have the Sector Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, also have the leadership of the Ghana Employment Association, also have the leadership of Organized Labour, then the figure was brought down to 22%. So that you realize that clear shortfall from 45 to 22. From that on, you realize that Labour began to become so much disappointed. Because then clearly, when you go into the negotiations for the base pay, there's no indication that you are going to get the 45%, because the rule is that no negotiation percentage should go below the daily minimum wage. Now, if the daily minimum wage is currently at 22%, then there's no way Labour would have gotten the 45%. So Labour clearly is going to get 23%, which government has granted currently. So if government had granted, let's say, 40% or 42 or 45% with the daily minimum wage, then obviously Labour would have gotten between 40 to 45%. But once there's a shortfall in the percentage, then clearly Labour, there's no way Labour is going to have that 45%. Then obviously they have to get a 23%, and then just 2% increment from July to December, hopefully from next year.
We'll see how things play out and exactly how the response will be coming in the coming months. But thank you, as always, Daniel Opokos.
Thank you very much.
Our Chief Labour Correspondent, giving us details of this announcement that came through earlier today. So now you know what the minimum wage is for the year 2024, the fiscal year. According to the details as announced by the Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, government has granted 23% salary increment to organized labour for the year 2024. The salary increment will cover between January and June 2024, while another increment of 23 to 25% will also be implemented for organized labor between July and December 2024. The National Tripartite Committee granted this 22% for the daily minimum wage. It has now increased in absolute monetary terms from 14 cedis 88 pesos for 2023 to 18 cities for 2024. So that's the expectation in there. But while we are now we do know, as has been confirmed by a statement from the Finance Ministry, the Finance Minister, Kenneth Riata, is expected to present the government's 2024 annual budget statement and economic policy to Parliament on Wednesday, November 15. That's tomorrow. Now, there's a constitutional exercise to be carried out by the Finance Minister on behalf of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. The presentation of the budget was in doubt as there was no communique from the Finance Ministry. But earlier today, a statement from the Finance Ministry did affirm and give that assurance of the presentation tomorrow. And part of the statement from the Finance Ministry reads, and I quote, in accordance with Article 179 of the 1992 Constitution and Section 21 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, the Minister for Finance will, on behalf of the President, lay before Parliament a budget statement and economic policy for Government of Ghana for the 2024 financial year on Wednesday, November 15, 2023. Now, groups including the likes of Ghana Union of Trade Association, GUTA, the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, Importers and Exporters Association, and a host of other trading associations have called on the government to introduce more major tax cuts to reduce the economic and financial burden on Ghanaians ahead of the presentation. So we hit the streets earlier to engage some members of the general public to share their expectations with us ahead of the budget presentation tomorrow.
Sometimes we the youth, we really suffer a lot. There are no jobs in the country. Everything is in shambles, you understand? So I just feel they should talk more about the employment and everything in the country. That would be something I would be really expecting to hear from the finance minister.
Right now, we are into a hardship. Let me say something like that. We're into an economic hardship. So to me, I would say it should bring a nice budget which will help the country out for this kind of economic hardship we are into. So to me, that's what I would say.
So can you pinpoint some of the hardships you are experiencing as
Hey, wow, hardship right now. I'm into a construction work, and due to transportation, you can see me, I'm walking. on the street, which are supposed to use a car. But because of transportation, I have to walk from Accra there to Spintex. Wow. Yeah. So that's one hardship. And many more. I can't even say them because you should understand. Yeah. So our transportation and food and water bill, light bills, then we are all into this kind of hardship.
The prices of goods these days, they are serious. And then we wish the government can do something about it for us. Looking at commodities like foods and clothing, it's serious. Me, for instance, I really like kosia and moko, and then you can buy egg for 5 cedis. It's outrageous.
As for me, for that mindset, I don't want to hear his name self, because in Ghana, the way Ghana is going, the way our economy is going, Master, for the youth, you are suffering too much, so I don't want to hear that man name self.
If you say that man, who specifically are you referring to?
The finance minister of Kenoforiata. No work. So always budget, then that's kind of...
Oh, wow. Well, so that's the finance minister expectations for him for tomorrow. And that's what we're hearing from members of the general public ahead of the budget presentation tomorrow. And we'll be hearing from the Federation of Labour shortly on this matter. But take a listen to some members of parliament as well who expressed their expectations ahead of the finance minister's budget presentation tomorrow.
I'm very excited. Number one, I'm excited because this is Kenoforiata's last budget. Ghana will gain independence, financial independence from Ghana. Kenoforiata will go after this budget, but to me, to be sincere with you, there's no budget. The man is not coming to say anything. What is he coming to say? What has he spent? What is the income? What is he talking about? What is going on in Ghana? A dead economy. Ghana is dead. We are happy that Kenoforiata after this budget will go away and Ghana will gain independence and Ghana will resurrect again.
I expect a good budget as they've been doing always. The finance minister have been delivering all the time. So clearly, I don't expect any other thing than for him coming to deliver again. This year's budget, I'm going to 2024 budget, should be a budget that is going to help our economic growth further. So it's going to be more of stability and development budget. It's going to be a budget that really, we're going to see a lot of ease on Ghanaians.
Well, you hear some members of parliament there sharing their expectations ahead of the 2024 budget presentation tomorrow. Let's go on to the telephone. And Abraham Komsen is the General Secretary of the Ghana Federation of Labour, is joining us. Mr. Komsen, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Now, a number of things I know you've been talking about with respect to, for instance, the impact of the increased taxes on the welfare of your members as well. What are the specific expectations that you have of this 2024 budget?
As we've been saying, the taxes are too many. We wrote to the minister about a month ago, raising issues about the nuisance taxes that are destroying the industry. Because that now, most of them cannot sell their product because they pass on whatever increases onto their final product. So if you don't get people to buy, so what do? You can't sell, and eventually you have to send home your stuff. So we expect that you remove these outrageous taxes that are destroying the industry. And what baffles us is that I don't know whether they do auditing, because last year when they imposed these taxes, I don't know whether they have done some auditing to find out whether they are getting the revenue, the projected revenue from the taxes that they have imposed. Certainly, if they have done that, they wouldn't attempt to add more, because most of these companies wound up, and workers have been sent home. So the revenue that they are expecting wouldn't come. The taxes wouldn't come. So if they are really doing scientific analysis of whatever they are doing, they will not attempt to impose any taxes again. What they will do is to reduce these taxes. We know that, yes, no government can function without taxes. But there's, I don't know. Because when they were in opposition, they were talking about nuisance taxes. When they come, production is going to replace taxes and all these things. And they are doing a different thing altogether. Meanwhile, they are keeping about 120 something, MPs. Go to the Jubilee House. About 1,000 plus staffers. They are paying them. You don't cut your expenditure. And you impose taxes. I don't know what ideology they are following. Whether it is, I don't think that it is capitalist ideology. Because capitalism, you rather facilitate or make sure that you create a congenial environment for private industries to grow. But what they are doing, they are destroying everything. So, I think that these people, they will not listen because they have already committed themselves. The ILO the IMF that they didn't want to go, we are not going there today, we are not going there tomorrow. Now they are there. You can't trust them. Whatever they say, they will never go by it. So we are only praying and hoping that God will intervene so that things happen. But if you want to count on them, that they will listen to the concerns and the lamentations of the people, they won't listen. The people, they won't listen. They won't listen. They will do whatever. And we are waiting.
So what are the specific taxes that you want removed?
No, the excise duty. Remember, in February this year, they imposed about 3. If I'm not in office now, but I know they imposed about 3 excise duties on these beverages, food and beverages, drinks. For instance, Calipo, for instance, it used to sell at 1 cedi, 20 pesos or so. Now it's about 5 cedis plus. And they're not buying. Because you can't sell. You not, as a parent, how do you give food, pay some meal for your child, and then you go and buy 5 cedis, Calipo, added? You can't afford it. You can't afford it. So they're not buying them product. Because of that, most of the workers in this sector industry have been asked to go home. It's really serious. Today we had series of meetings trying to persuade the manufacturers or the employers to consider keeping these workers. They said, no, how do we keep them? We can't sell. So how do we keep them? So this is where the government or the finance minister is not looking at. But if you look at this man, he's not prepared to, what he is going to do, that's what he's going to do. Nobody, I don't know, maybe if some do, but they don't care. These people, they do not care whether you like it or not. They will do whatever. They have the mindset just to, destroy the economy, make money for themselves. Then you continue to do what they are doing. We are watching them.
Well, but for your members specifically, I know you've been also having meetings and so on ahead of the presentation of the budget tomorrow. Has there been any engagement between yourselves and the finance ministry, or have you made recommendations to the finance ministry in any form?
Oh, yes. The ministry, they wrote to us, organized labor, and we responded. On the 9th October, we responded and came out with our proposals, what we expect to be done. And we included these, outrageous taxes that are, killing the businesses. We wrote all. But whether they will use it is another thing. We have written to them about a month ago. They have it. They have our input. We even reminded them about 2 weeks ago. We sent a reminder, specifically raising issues with these taxes that are creating a lot of problems for the industry, and also, sending home workers and all that. So, but listening to the MPs, and they're sure. 11 billion, these dollars or something out of the new taxes that they are going to introduce. It will move back. We are watching.
Mr. Abraham comes in. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. And so gauging expectations ahead of the budget presentations, Chuma Kwabwa is the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Ghana Industries, is also joining us. Thank you so much, Mr. Chuma Kwabwa. Now, you raised concerns specifically about the impact of the quarterly review of the tariffs, electricity and water tariffs on industry in this country. What's the situation now?
Once again, the tariff issues, I must say that somehow we appreciate sometimes the need to do the adjustments. You recall that we had a major adjustment in tariff last year around September. That was a significant jump. Subsequently, what we've had is under the arrangement we call the automatic adjustment formula, which is based on the parameters that determine the tariff levels. So the exchange rate, the energy mix, and then the oil prices. Now, between last year, September 2022, and now we've had about 72% increment in energy or electricity tariffs. Water has also gone up quite significantly, more than 60%. So if you put it together, it's quite a difficult situation. The reason they give for these adjustments, one, apart from the major adjustment that is done, is also because we had challenges last year with the fast depreciation of the cedi, and most of the IPPs we've signed are dollar denominated. So once your cedi is depreciating, then it means you need more cedis to mobilize and for the same amount of dollars, and then it affects the tariff level. So we appreciate where they were coming from, but the bottom line is that it's not so much of the cost, but the effect. The effect is that once you have these adjustments, then you should expect that it will impact on the productive sector. And I think that's what we are experiencing now, and it's causing manufacturing to shrink. So it's really had an impact, and I wish that we have stability so that we don't have these frequent changes in tariff levels. But to keep the energy sector also operating, sometimes some adjustment is necessary to keep the business flowing from that end, because if they are unable to provide consistent, regular, and reliable supply of energy, then it also affects the productive sector. So you are sometimes torn between the rock and hard place. So we appreciate the need to adjust, but we hope that we should be able to stabilize our macroeconomic environment such that we wouldn't have situations to cause such significant jumps in the tariff levels. As a matter of fact, in the case of water, a special group was created, last year, and their tariff levels were increased about 300%, and that was really a major challenge. And within a period of 5 months, one company, for example, accumulated more than 10 million cedis debt. So you can imagine its impact on such a company. And if you go to the Ghana Stock Exchange today, a lot of the companies, the big companies that are listed there, they are making losses, and that's quite unfortunate. So it's a general challenge in the macroeconomic environment, and I hope that we have a normalcy to the situation so we can improve and expand and employ more people as we go along.
Right on. Mr. Chuma Kwabwa, thank you very much. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, and talk about issues of electricity. Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boachi, is saying Ghana's energy sector is facing dire financial challenges than it was a decade ago. According to him, very little has been done to tackle the power sector problems following a 2014 diagnosis which named financial, managerial, and technical challenges as a root cause of the country's energy problems. As we keep experiencing intermittent power outages, there are questions being asked whether we're having load shedding. Well, the Deputy Energy Minister, Andre Japamesa, has reiterated assurances by government officials that the country is far from plunging into a load shedding era. According to him, the recent outages are due to some minor technical challenges which have now been resolved. His assurance comes on the back of a similar comforting claim by the Energy Minister, Matthew Poku-Prempeh, who on Monday categorically ruled out the possibility of load shedding despite persistent power outages in parts of the country. Frustrated consumers accuse government of not being transparent about the real power challenges with sporadic power outages experienced across the country. Now, a national religious policy is in the offing. This, according to the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, has become relevant to regulate religious affairs and activities in the country and also ensure the protection of the basic human rights of the religious followers. There's more in the following report.
The 1992 Constitution prohibits religious discrimination and provides for individuals' freedom to profess and practice any religion as contained in Article 21, Clause 1C. All religious bodies are, however, required to register with the Office of the Registrar General to receive formal government recognition. Religious differences, if not well managed, can serve as a source of conflict, hence the development of the National Religious Policy. According to the Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, the National Religious Policy will help reduce faith-based arbitrariness.
Some religious leaders abuse their followers. Again, noise pollution. In some instances, causing nuisance to some neighbors and damaging the eardrums of infants. Money laundering, which are in almost all the world countries in the world become a crime. Exploitation of the vulnerable within the religious landscape, limited documentation on code of conduct, and succession plans that may bring confusion and conflicts in our religious bodies. False indoctrination, and if I may go a little back, for instance, the case of Reverend Jim Jones, who led the People's Temple to massacre in Guyana in November 1978. Also, we have incident to gender-based violence. Also, we have inter- and intra-faith disputes, and little know of organizational structure and hierarchical structure, as I've already mentioned, sometimes leaves gaps for succession planning as to who takes over from a religious body. Whilst my ministry appreciates and commends the wonderful works of some of our religious bodies and leaders, we always also wish to take proactive measures to engineer the necessary reforms needed for addressing the worrying issues that have sprung up.
The plan is also to address the challenges and opportunities that arise from the coexistence of different faiths and beliefs. The document is currently in its formative stages with consultation to begin in the various regions. According to the 2021 Population and Housing Census, approximately 71% of Ghana's population are Christians, 20% are Muslims, and 3% adhere to indigenous or animistic religious beliefs. 6% of the population, according to the census, adheres to other religious beliefs or has no religious belief.
Grace Amoajiman with that report. It's live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond that. We're getting information that the Finance Ministry has secured 50 million euros in local funding for the reconstruction of the La General Hospital. As according to the Health Minister, Kwekwa Meno, the hospital was demolished in 2020 due to structural defects, but work on the reconstruction project is yet to begin. In a briefing to Parliament, Kwekwa Meno said that the Finance Ministry had identified a local alternative source of funding for the project. So that's the latest with the La General Hospital, and it's something we're going to be keeping an eye on with this 50 million euros we understand in local funding that the government of Ghana has secured for that project. But presidential candidate of the Movement for Change, Alan Kojo Chimanting, says his vision to move beyond the duopoly of the MPP and the NDC is still on course, citing instances in China and Japan and the way they turned their economies around. The leader of the Movement for Change said Ghanaians should vote for a president not on the basis of political parties they belong, but on individual and personality basis.
What I'm seeking to do and what I'm doing in the field, that structure is the movement. Except that under our laws, it is not a political party. And the very important difference is what Madam also referred to, that the narrative that underpins the ideals of my movement can only be materialized if I'm contesting as an independent candidate. Because I'm talking about moving beyond the duopoly. So the issue is not creating another party. Because if it's a question of another party, you have two dominant parties. So it's about leadership. The great nations of this world were built not on the back of parties, but on individuals. I mean, if you look at Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, you look at Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, you look at Deng Xiaoping in China. The transformation that occurred in those countries was not based on the fact that they were leaders of the Communist Party or some other political organization, but you can trace it to the individuals and the uniqueness that they brought to the politics in those countries. And I think, arguably, we can say the same thing about Nkrumah in Ghana. So, yes, it's a political organization, not a political party, but as an independent candidate, you are an honest broker that brings all parties and stakeholders together to ensure that you achieve the objectives of the transformation agenda. So that I'm inviting Ghanaians to soberly and critically consider why, as a country, we should not vote for a president as a non-partisan candidate.
Oh, that's Alan Kojo Chamantin there. But former Vice President of the United States of America, Al Gore, has urged African leaders to improve measures put in place to fight corruption. Speaking in an exclusive interview with me here in Accra, he indicated improvement in levels of transparency is a sure way of winning the fight against corruption in all forms.
Of the United States, I sponsored international conferences to fight official corruption. And of course, it's a problem in all over the world. But when it gets to the levels of hyper-corruption, then it changes everything. One cause of corruption is what the economists call a resource curse. When too much of a country's wealth is in one resource that is extracted in ways that enrich the wealthy elites, and the poor people don't get any benefit from it. And the wealthy elites sometimes become vulnerable to accepting bribes in order to keep this system going. In Nigeria, 86% of the balance of payments with the rest of the world economy comes from fossil fuels, but only 0.6% of the employment that gives income to the people is related to fossil fuels. So it drives inequality that becomes hyper inequality that feeds corruption. So getting away from this dependence on dirty and poisonous fossil fuels is one of the ways to fight against corruption. Well, transparency is the most important solution. There's an old saying that the best disinfectant is sunlight. When the people can see what is going on, then those who are tempted to be corrupt are scared to continue their nefarious activities.
That's Al Gore, the former Vice President of the United States of America, with me in that exclusive interview. You'll have the full interview at 10 p.m. on Ghana Tonight on TV3, and then also on New Day tomorrow morning on TV3, and on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. It's all live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Remember, Hot Edition is probably brought to you by Old Mutual. Benefit from my expertise in offering comprehensive solutions to expand your investment and also find insurance policies that shield your business from the uncertainties of financial loss. Old Mutual, do great things every day. Right after this, go for the business news with Michael Obodu.
there, welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Michael Obodu. Coming up, Bank of Ghana likely to review policy rates downwards following drop in inflation for the third consecutive month to 35.2% from 38.1% recorded in September. We have the details for you shortly. Please stay. Well, my name is Michael Obodu, and straight into our first story, as the Bank of Ghana is likely to review downwards its key lending rates, that is, the rate at which it lends to commercial banks. This is because inflation has dropped for the third consecutive time to 35.2% from 38.1% recorded in September 2023. Data from the Ghana Statistical Service showed that the decrease in the general inflation rate being attributed to the marginal decline in food inflation. Professor Samuel Kobna-Enim is the government statistician.
October 2023 consumer price index stood at 195.2 relative to 144.4 that was recorded for the same time October 2022. Given these two indices, rate of inflation for the month of October 2023 stood at 35.2, which literally means that between October 2022 and October 2023, prices of goods and services went up by 35.2%. This rate of inflation, which signifies the third consecutive slowdown in the rate of inflation, is 2.9 percentage points lower than the rate that was recorded for September 2023, which had a rate of inflation of 38.1%. We disaggregate this rate of inflation from two perspectives: food and non-food inflation, and locally produced items and imported items. Between food and non-food inflation, food inflation was 44.8% for the month of October 2023, relative to 27.7% for non-food inflation for the same time, October 2023. The slowdown in food inflation is sharper as it decreased by 4.6% percentage point between September 2023 and October 2023.
So that was government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna-Enim speaking there. Away from that, the Institute for Energy Security, IES, is projecting fuel prices to go down at the second pricing window starting November 16, 2023. Following the price falls recorded for gasoline, gas oil, and liquefied petroleum gas on the international market, it is expected to bring domestic fuel prices down at the pumps. However, this imminent fall may be thwarted by the continuous fall of the Ghana cedi against the US dollar in recent times. In the just ended first pricing window, the Ghana cedi depreciated by 0.86 and 1.32% in the second pricing window for October 2023. Going into the second pricing window for November 2023, the Institute for Energy Security projects a likely drop in the price of petroleum products. But with the trend of Ghana cedi performance monitored over the last two windows, this may likely forestall the expected reductions. Now, the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana anticipates the 2024 budget will introduce policies to stabilize and bring predictability to the country's banking sector. This comes as the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected to present the country's budget for next year tomorrow. Speaking to the media on the sidelines of the 2023 National Banking and Ethics Conference, CEO of the Institute, Robert Jato, emphasized the need for attention to be directed towards businesses, ensuring their growth and success in the coming year.
Bankers, and certainly for the banking industry, our expectation of the budget is that, any economic policy of government must be important to our industry, because the banking industry is a catalyst for economic development. So we'll pay attention to the budget very carefully, but we certainly expect certainty that the macroeconomic indicators will trend in the right direction. But whilst we are keen on seeing the macro, we shouldn't sacrifice the micro, which is the real business, is the real economy. So we expect some policies that will support the real economy. But most importantly, the certainty that we all need to be able to plan, because our stakeholders and banks need to strategize and need to be able to have the certainty to operate.
That was the CEO of the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana, Robert Jatto, speaking there. Now, Ghana's stock exchange has been ranked the third best performing market on the African continent, following positive indications by the exchange's composite index, which is over 30% this year. Managing Director of the local BES, Abena Amwa, made this known on the sidelines of the exchange's 33rd annual anniversary celebrations. So we'll hear shortly from the Ghana Stock Exchange CEO.
If you had invested across the stock market, your return so far this year would have been 30% on price appreciation. And this performance is the third best performance in Africa in terms of stock exchanges. So we're very happy for that. There are many companies also whose prices have gone up significantly this year. Ben's Oil Palm's price has gone up over 160%. So someone who bought in January, if they sold today, would have made 160% return on their investment, and many other companies as well. So we're very happy to see this performance on the market.
So that was Abena Amwa, the Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, bringing an end to the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. My name is Michael Lobodu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is sports.
With Giovanni on 92.7 FM. With Giovanni on 92.7.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Bill Lishen, and we are going to start off from the Black Stars because they are training in Kumasi ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Madagascar and Comoros Islands. The team was earlier scheduled to train in Accra today before traveling to Kumasi on Wednesday, but they have changed plans and they are currently training at the Babayara Sports Stadium in Kumasi. My colleague Raphael Sarkodie is at the Babayara Sports Stadium and has this report.
Well, so the Black Stars are currently in Kumasi, here at the Babayara Stadium, training ahead of that crucial World Cup qualifying game against Madagascar. Indeed, it's a very subdued atmosphere here in Kumasi, well, in front of the Babayara Stadium. I mean, a lot of fans, well, really are not aware that the Black Stars are training today, so most of them are not here, and that means that the Black Stars have full concentration and they are training behind closed doors. Well, what we can exclusively say is that one player, Lawrence Atizigi, is yet to arrive in camp, and the reason we gather is that he is yet to arrive in Ghana over here to join his colleagues, but we know that he will be joining his colleagues in time to be able to have training for that particular Friday game against Madagascar. For 3 Sports, this is Raphael Sarkodie from Kumasi.
That was Raphael Sarkodie giving us the updates on the Black Stars. As he mentioned, Lawrence Atizigi is not currently with the Black Stars camp and so wasn't in training today. But still on the Black Stars, defender Nicolas Opoku believes the current crop of players have the desire to win games ahead of the qualifiers.
It's really good, you know. Now we are really young, and then once we are young, you know, everyone wants to win and wants to fight, and it's good that we have some experienced players around us because they are there to correct some of the mistakes that we do. But it's good that the young players are really a lot in the team. Once we did a mistake, we can even try to speak to ourselves and to encourage ourselves to learn. Because as soon as we keep on learning, I think we will get where we want to reach. And then this job is always learning. So if we continue learning, I think we're gonna do better, and then success.
Okay. That was Black Stars defender there, Nicholas Opoku. That brings an end to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. Before I do go, of course, Hartlefolk just breaking, half sacked Koopman, coach Martinez Koopman, after just 10 games in charge. Now, up next is entertainment with Akofa standing by.
Thank you for keeping your dial locked on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It's now time for the entertainment news segment powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Let's begin with versatile singer and vocal powerhouse Ifia, who has advised her fellow artists and creatives dealing with the pressures of fame to seek therapy to protect their mental health. Now, to Ifia, artists are sometimes too hard on themselves when they are unable to meet society's expectations. The Best in Me hit maker also said that moving forward in dealing with such pressures, they should make sure that they have some time for therapy.
I think therapy is very important for everybody in their own way. We go through a lot of things that we can't talk about with everybody, especially maybe our family, because we're scared of judgment and ridicule and, just feeling some way about it. So I'm advising therapy for artists, especially creatives who are bound with this kind of mindset of pressure to be great all the time. It doesn't even matter that you've been great for 30 years or 20 years. It's like you still want to be great for the rest of the 50 years that you have left.
Is it that you want to be great, or there's a lot of pressure from the public?
It's a lot of pressure, regardless of how much you want to be great. Maybe you want to be great in your own timing, but there's a pressure from the public, from the people. There's expectation for you from other people. So in between all of that, get some therapy so that you're not too hard on yourself. Because of that, artists are very hard on themselves when they're not succeeding at stuff. But you have to learn and know that great things will take time. It takes gradual process for things to happen the way you want them to happen, especially if it's really great, big things. So get people that you can talk to that will not bring you down, especially when you're already down. That people that will encourage you, that will give you the energy that you need, the right kind of energy to be able to sustain you till that time comes.
Well, let's stay a while longer on Ifia. The singer says she's not under pressure to release projects to attract the attention of the Grammys and other international awards. Speaking on New Day earlier today, the singer slammed her critics, noting that she's not in a rush to do things to impress people.
It's not pressure for me. You understand? I think it's a process. I believe I'll get there. It's just the timing. You understand? Everybody's timing is different. I'm not rushing. It has to be processed. I work with intention. You feel me? Everything I do is already intended and already planned. Because I care about my future. So I'm not rushing to do things just to impress people. It has to be on my time.
But at the same time, these same fans are saying that you've been in the industry long enough. There's really no competition for you. And so they expect that you should have attained higher heights by now.
I don't think, what is their expectation of higher heights to them?
Well, so the Grammys and all these other major platforms that all these
artists have won about 45 awards
in
my career. I don't think anybody's kicking the higher height. So I'm not thinking about what they're thinking when it comes to that.
But you do the song for them, don't you?
I do though, but also it's for me first. So regardless of what the fans think, I love the fans and I've done so much for them, but they should also know that there's sometimes that I got to do some things for myself. And also too much pressure. We come from a place where the industry is not as big as it is in other places. So please stop comparing and everything. We don't have the financial assistance as most of these artists do to be signed to international labels, to be able to get access to some of the things that the people are getting access to. So we're doing our best though.
And that's all the entertainment news here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Thanks for your time.